hello, and welcome back to another episode with Raf King and Mr. Tango. So today, we're going over some body work. Yeah, so I've always wanted to kind of do like critique videos over body work, but I always felt slightly uncomfortable critiquing somebody else's work. Obviously, even if there's like the smallest amount of miscommunication there, it can come off as kind of pompous. So I'm just going to critique myself, and maybe we can learn something from it. Maybe we can understand that even after a decade and a half, you can make some mistakes. But I'd really just like to show you that, some of my technique, what I do in a session. Maybe you could learn something from this. Maybe you're wondering why I do what I do in the session. So this is for everybody here. This is for clients. This is for new therapists. Heck, maybe you're even super experienced and you think you might learn something from this. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So this is my friend Megan on the table, by the way. She's absolutely wonderful, and she was nice enough to agree to have a camera pointed at her during her massage. Now, obviously, this is not the norm. In fact, in the massage industry, we heavily deter having any camera like anywhere on the premises, really. Like, you shouldn't even have your cell phone in your massage room. That's just how seriously things are taken, and I'm okay with that. So this isn't a normal thing right here. This is not a normal thing, but she's super cool, and she's super tough too. So just to give you a little background on her, she basically wrestles horses for a living. Yeah, she's awesome. No, she's a horse farrier. And so she's constantly, her body's under a lot of stress. So today what we were focused on when we were working with her is some low back health. And for me, and she said she could really feel that tension in the anterior portion of the hips there, which definitely tells me some Psoas indications. Let's keep in mind that when we're talking about the Psoas, it can be a very tight muscle. It can also be a very weak muscle, and tight muscles and weak muscles can act the same. So although I like to work on this muscle, you will run into some massage therapists who would rather stretch the muscle and not get directly on it. Because as you'll see here, it can be kind of an intense process on both massage therapist and client. So just keep that in mind, that some massage therapists don't do this for safety reasons for themselves. I mean, you can really jam out some joints. And for the client, I've never run into any safety issues with the client before, ever. So let's go ahead and get into it. So as you'll see, we already prepared for her to have a towel across her chest before we got started with the session, so we could just get right into it. We've done this several times now, so she understands that this is something that she should have ready. Obviously, it's a little different for guys, but for women, we have to have this, and she already knows about it, so she just has it on as we start the session here. Now, what I'm doing here is we're going to start to warm up some of those superficial tissues, right? So the psoas, if you don't know, is just anterior, just in front of the spine. So it's very deep in the abdomen here. And this is how you access it. You go through the abdomen, you push out the organs out of the way, and you kind of work your way down to the front of the spine there. So it helps out a lot when you can warm up some of that superficial tissue. Yeah, just some basic, doing a little bit of fascial stretching here, just kind of pulling on the tissue a little bit, just to kind of help it relax. You'll notice my body mechanics here. Although I'm talking to her, I don't need to look at her. In fact, after so many years, I've found it quite a lot easier just to look just dead ahead, right? So although it feels a little weird at first to feel like you're talking to the wall when you're actually talking to the person on the table, it's not weird. It's awesome because you're going to save your neck, you're going to save your back, and things that happen up here in the neck are going to transfer down to the hands. That is just how it goes. So if you care about hand health, keep your head straight, keep your eyes on the horizon. This part's boring. Let's get past this. Okay, so I was getting some CBD cream there. That's why I had to walk to the other side of the room. I thought it would be really nice to use in an area that we were going to focus on. As always, I don't charge for CBD cream. I don't charge for any add-ons, actually. The only add-on I charge for is time. That's it. So I recommend using CBD cream in an area that is in crisis, right? Just kind of anything that'll help. Even if it's 1%, that's 1% in the right direction. So I always recommend to use it if you got it. So we're chatting, we're talking, life is good. Now here, what I'm doing with the hand that's lower on the body, I'm kind of pinning the tissue down, and the hand that's moving up towards the rib cage, that's moving across the abdominal area there. That's moving across the musculature. Now, with other areas of the body, say the back, we have a rib cage that we can push into. So there's a bone there. So it makes it super easy to just press down and create some pressure on the muscle. But we're lacking a lot of that structure here in the abdomen. So you kind of have to create it yourself. You kind of have to pull the tissue taut so you can do a stroke across it. And that's really all there is to it. It's super simple. I'm coming around to the opposite side here to do the same exact thing, but we don't need to see that. Come on, get out of the way, man. Get out of the way. Okay, so what we see here. I've created a little diamond with my hand, right? So I've done something like this, and it was more of a triangle. And this isn't something that the experienced massage therapist really needs to do. I'm kind of just doing it for the video here, but basically what you're going to find is with this triangle, at the top of the triangle, you have the belly button. On one side, you're going to have the bottom of the rib cage. On the other side, you're going to have the iliac crest. And in the center of this triangle, as you triangulate, you're going to find the edge of the rectus abdominis. And this is where you're going to slowly work your way into the deeper layers. You're going to find that separation there. So that's why you saw me do that, and it's a great technique to help you. Really, though, you could just palpate for the edge of the abs on plenty of people, especially Megan here. Plenty palpable. On some people, it's even visible. You'll also see that we have her right hip in a flexed position. So we're going to put the psoas in a shortened position because we're going to go through some movement after this. And she's going to elongate that muscle, which is going to help as we pin down on it. So with other muscles, I might have kind of like a non-gliding technique where I'm kind of like peeling away at it. Because of the depth of this muscle, I don't really like to do that because every small movement just feels so amplified, right? So what we had to do is we had to drop down her leg, and now she's going through some range of motion, right? Now with the psoas muscle and the iliacus, with that, it does hip flexion. So we did a slight extension to the hip, extension to neutral, right? It's not true extension, but it's extension back to neutral. And it also does some lateral rotation, right? So we were getting the foot to go in a medial direction, and of course we have to go back in a lateral, but kind of that rotating back and forth, left to right, is also going to help work the muscle out. As we were checking out her foot, it kind of was doing a little bit of that plantar and dorsiflexion with it as well. Really, we want just left to right, but I mean, it's not going to hurt anything, really. It's not. And if this is how they're going to get through the movement in the client, then it's perfectly fine, right? And all I'm doing is I'm slowly now working down the psoas with each repetition. Each time she comes back up, I'm just going to reorient myself, go a little bit lower, a little bit lower. Now, the cool thing is that as she goes through that movement, you're absolutely going to feel the muscle. Absolutely, 100%. And if you don't, you might not be in the right space, so you might have to readjust a little bit. I find a lot of the times we go too perpendicular to the body, and you want to kind of get more at that 45-degree angle, maybe even a little more of a narrow angle, more almost parallel, not parallel to the floor, but more so. We're getting closer there, right? So you kind of have to adjust your angle a little bit. And again, on the fingertips, you should absolutely feel this muscle moving as they go through their range of motion. So she is super tough, and she's taking this like a champ. So I'm kind of just moving through this with her, right? But there are some people where you have to watch how much time you spend with it. You know, like I have to watch when it comes to like psoas work, when it comes to subscap work, that one can be really hard on people. Like, I love getting my subscaps work, but it's some people just have knives through fingers. It can be tough. So right here, what you're seeing is I'm actually switching up my angle, right? So what you saw before is I was pressing into the body, now I'm kind of pulling towards me, right? So we're getting more of the iliacus muscle. Now iliacus, unlike psoas, is actually very superficial, right? Although they blend together, you could really help the psoas by working the iliacus. Let me talk about what I'm doing right here. So I have got my elbow down now. Now I'm just distal, so just south of, just below the ASIS right here. In fact, I want to say I'm closer to the AIIS, the anterior inferior iliac spine. And this is where your rectus femoris is going to come up and attach to the hip right here. Now, rectus femoris, so your most superficial quad muscle. If you reach down on the front of your thigh right here, and you have your hand right on top, you're on top of the rectus femoris. Now, this also aids in hip flexion, along with the psoas and the iliacus. Working up by this attachment is oftentimes overlooked because a lot of massage therapists don't drape high enough. And I think that it's because of massage school in a lot of ways. A lot of ways, massage therapists are scared out of a high drape. For some dumb reason, we always start them off draping low, and then we wonder why it's so hard to teach them how to drape high. If you aren't in a position to drape high, just work directly over the sheet, especially if your client's asking for something like that. That's totally fine. Don't just overlook the area, though. Sorry, that's my little rant for the day, right? So we're just continuing with the Psoas work. It's very simple stuff, actually. Psoas work is always made out to be kind of scary, and I can see why, because you got a lot of delicate structures in the area, much like when you're dealing with the neck, right? I mean, there's arteries, there's nerves, there's organs in this area, right? There's all sorts of stuff, and if you are to not have any sense of safety or technique, or have any cautiousness about what you do, then this could be a bad experience for somebody, and there could be repercussions to it. So I always recommend that you practice and you get the proper instruction before you do anything. But in reality, this technique is not as scary as it looks, and it's not as hard as it looks either. A lot of people make this out to be way harder than it has to be. Now, what if you're just you're not okay with it? I'm not going to do this, right? Like, you're looking at how much of my fingers, how the depth of my fingers into this person's abdomen here, and you're like, I really don't think I could take that. It doesn't really look like it feels good, or it's going to benefit the person. It will benefit the person. I absolutely think it will. But if you can't do the work, or you think the person can't handle the work, now that's okay, right? Like that's totally fine. If you look at somebody and you think they are not going to be able to handle me working on their psoas, or even my fingers won't be able to handle working on the psoas, move to more of a stretching type of regimen, right? So let me show you one right here. Let's go ahead and skip ahead. So we're going to do a supine psoas stretch here. Supine, of course, means face up. So I'm going to have her face up on the table right here. You can also do a psoas stretch with them face down. Now, the thing is, if they're in the prone position, if they're face down, you are going to have to lift a limb. You're going to have to lift their leg, right? So, I'm an okay sized guy. I'm about 200 pounds. I lift regularly. I'm totally okay with something like that, especially with somebody Megan's size. That's totally doable. But there have been some NFL players I've worked with before where I'm like, I do not think I can lift their leg and do an effective PNF stretch, right? Because I do like to add some contraction into the stretch as well, and I think that's totally beneficial. But this one right here isn't going to require you to lift anything. In fact, you're going to be pressing down a lot and just stabilizing. So what we have here is we have Megan on the edge of the table, right? So she's scooted all the way to the edge. And I'm going to use my body to help stabilize her. So I'm going to put my hip right up against the edge of the table right there, so she has something to lean into, right? She's got some kind of barrier there. What you don't want with stretching is someone to feel unstable or untrusting, because then they're going to want to try to stabilize and tighten up in weird ways, and you might not actually be stretching the thing that you want to stretch. So we're stretching the right leg, so I have her moved over to the right side of the table here. And I'm even telling her a little bit more. Come on now, come on, don't be afraid. And we're going to drop that right leg off the table. Now, she's short enough that she doesn't have to grab the ankle. Like, the ankle's probably not, or the foot's probably not going to touch the floor. There are some people, though, that have really long legs. You might have to wrap a towel around the leg that's dipped towards the floor here, so they have something to hang onto, so it kind of helps to bend the leg, right? So it's not just jamming right into the floor, but she's small enough that we don't need to do that. Now, what you also see here is I laid a towel down. Now, if you reach to the front of your hips here and you feel a very palpable bone right at your pelvis, right to the side here, that's your ASIS. That's your anterior superior iliac spine. Now, that's a good landmark to kind of help stabilize the hip, kind of find where I'm going to press down and stabilize. But boy, oh boy, if there's not enough padding right there and you're pressed down on it, it feels like a spine. It can hurt the person on the table. It's probably not going to hurt you, but it can be uncomfortable for the person on the table. So the towel that was across your chest, I just use it as a little bit of padding to help stabilize her, because I'm going to press that right knee down, which is going to probably turn the body if I don't stabilize it. So that's why I want to press on the left hip as I'm pressing the right knee down. So we're separate. We're getting the hip extension, true hip extension now. Right, pressing it down, pressing it down, pressing it down. And then I'm asking her to push back into it. This is P&F stretching right here. So she's pressing back into it, and then I'm going to ask her to relax, and we're going to move a little bit further. You saw me dip down right there, right? So I was able to move a little further into the stretch because of it. We go to a more relaxed position, and then we go right back into the stretch. And you can kind of keep repeating this until you feel like you've gotten enough out of it, until you feel like you've gotten everything out of it. Now that there is probably one of the safer stretches for the client. Or excuse me. Actually, yeah, for the client and for the massage therapist. I think this is a really, really good one right here. When you go into the prone position and do this similar stretch, I don't have it on video here. We'll get it for you later. You have to not only lift the leg, but you have to also, like I was stabilizing the hip here, you have to do that with them in the prone position. So you have to press down and lift at the same time. Little man, you are so feisty today. What's going on? Are you okay? Are you okay, young man? He's not getting enough attention. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and wrap up the video here. We'll move into some of the other segments in another day because there's so much wonderful body work in this. So if you have any questions about what I was doing today, maybe about some of the off-body mechanics or anything like that, let me know. I'd love to answer anything. If you have anything you want to say, just drop it down in the comments for me. Thank you so much for your attention today. I thoroughly appreciate you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Phone number's on the screen, emails on the screen. Buy my book because it's awesome. And hey, always remember to be safe and stay safe. Be awesome and stay awesome. Where to go get out of here and take a nap? I hope you do the same. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.